Good morning. Welcome to Pink Salt Shed TV. Another week gone by. I'll probably start every Friday with another week gone by because I'm always totally amazed at how quickly it does. Today we're joined by Shona. Shona is the head teacher of two schools, an infant school and a junior school. And she is absolutely stacked to the eyeballs with what she's going on, what she's got to do today. But she's given us some time to be able to talk to us and let us know what's been going on in schools over the last year. It has actually pretty much been a year, hasn't it? So there's been lots of trials and tribulations, lots of probably highs and very low lows, and lots of stress of the situation. So we just want to hear from somebody in the absolute know what has been going on, which I think for me will give us a newfound appreciation. I think not that we haven't appreciated what's been going on and what they've been doing, but actually to hear exactly what's been going on. I think it's really important that we know because, well, the teaching staff have had to literally, well, walked water to make things happen for us. So let's go to Shona and let's chat with Shona about what it is that's gone on. Good morning.
Hi.
Thanks
Hiya.
so much. Hi. Thank you for joining us and thank you for now going through what it is that you've been doing to help us all make sure our kids are still educated and still on that right track to being groovy little kids. Now, Shona, actually, just to let you know, Shona has got a wealth of experience with teaching, starting off as a teacher, then going into leadership, now being a head teacher. At the time where you've really had to do so much to help us and our children. Can you tell us tell us a lot about it from the beginning?
About the school closures?
Yeah, I mean, about a little bit about how you got into teaching and the fact that clearly you've got to love kids to be able to do that. And then with the school closures, just really what a tall order it's been, I think, for you all.
I think that it's worth bearing in mind that you either want to teach or you don't. There isn't any middle ground.
Yes.
So for me, it was something that I wanted to do from probably mid-teens, something like that.
Okay.
I did my degree in education. I came and got a job in Cheltenham as an NQT. And then since that time, I've stayed within the same establishment. We're a trust of schools and I've stayed within the same establishment and I've been a year group leader. I've been an assistant head, I've been a deputy head, I've been a head of school, and now I'm a head teacher of I'm a head teacher of two schools, an infant and a junior school with a combined number of 600 children.
Well, and they're all between the ages of 4 and 11 as well. So
Yes.
I can imagine the noise level is up there and all these little people, I bet though it's lovely to see them grow from being 4 and then actually by the time they get to 11 you can almost see how they're being shaped into knowing how their path is going to pan out for them with the subjects that they love and their zest for learning in which areas that you think they might end up in. That must be really quite rewarding.
Yeah, you see them grow from, just as parents, you see them grow from small children who require a lot of support to independent, pre-teens ready to go and take on the world, really.
Yes.
Ready for secondary school and ready for the next part of their life.
Massive. Oh God. Well, I take my hat off to you because there's no way I would want to be a teacher. And as far as running a school, I think that I don't know whether I would be capable of doing it because it's not my want. And that's the thing. I think it's very special people that put themselves in front of all of these children and are responsible for how they are educated. I think it's amazing. Thank God for people like you, I have to say. So last year, what happened? We know what happened, but the button you had to, or the button that was pressed and then you had to react just like that. I can't imagine what it was like. Can you tell us what it was like?
We came to school on the Monday.
Yeah.
With, COVID was there. We were becoming increasingly more aware of it. But when the announcement was made that they were closing schools on the Wednesday evening, that was when we learnt too.
Yeah.
So all of the announcements that the government make, we hear at the same time as everybody else, really.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
So I think how the industry is the wrong word, but how the profession came together and was able to do that in such a short period of time, close the schools in such a short period of time, was actually quite phenomenal.
Yes,
so
totally
for the
agree.
first lockdown, although schools were closed, we still remained open for key worker and vulnerable children.
Yes.
And we still put in the social distancing, having them in their bubbles, not mixing, etc. But from March the 21st, schools closed, they did remain open. So it was more of a partial school than anything else.
That's true.
We were required to provide childcare for key worker children, and we were required to provide a space for those vulnerable children. Came under children with an EHCP for special educational needs.
Okay, yeah.
Or it came through children who were open to social services.
Got you. Right. Okay.
Those on child in need and child protection plans. Children attending school at that time was voluntary. Mm-hmm. So what everybody within the schools had to do, and something that was a big aspect of the role, I suppose, at that time, was ensuring that those vulnerable children who weren't in school continued to be safe.
Yes. Yeah.
So we had, we would complete welfare calls with identified families, because we were also very aware that just because a child has a social worker, there are other children who also need support that don't. So
yes. You are the support. The school is the support. Yeah. And if the school isn't there because they're at home, you've got to put measures in place to help.
So I had a team of volunteers from my staff who provided childcare activities and education as far as we were really able to at that point, from 8 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock at night. And then I had another team of people who we completed the welfare calls, made sure that the children were safe. We created food hampers, sorted out the food vouchers.
That was a big situation, wasn't it? Yeah.
All those sorts of things. We kind of made sure that everybody was as safe and well on that level.
Yeah, so I suppose it was the safety and the welfare of the students, that pupils, that really had to be first and foremost as being human beings. When it came to education, you had to give them an education, but firstly it was making sure everyone's okay, to set the scene for all of the work that you had to then distribute to everyone. And how did you do that? How did you get the work to them?
Well, we had our school website, and we had home-based packages there. So those teachers who weren't in school, they worked from home, and they worked diligently from home, and they created units of work and packages of work for the children to access online. If the children were unable to do that, we would create paper packs and deliver them to the houses, or allow the parents to come in and collect them.
Mm-hmm. Got you.
And that's how it worked.
Wow. So that's for weeks, wasn't it? Because then the children went back. I think was it mid-June, but then. Yeah, so from March to June, you had to deal with welfare, which is an ongoing thing anyway, school lunches, which became very, the forefront of many people's minds, with all the work they had to do, and you then had to put in place all of the different bubbles and the infrastructure for the different year groups going back to school for the remainder of that term. So normally you wouldn't have had any of that to do. Well, you'd have had the stuff to do at school, but then there was so much more. So your team must have really, right, Shona, what can I do? What can I do? Tell me what I can do and I'll do it. They must have really been absolutely there.
They are the most dedicated group of people I have the privilege of knowing.
Yeah.
They've been absolutely phenomenal throughout all of this and kept the children central.
Yes,
And
yes.
e- even when the children aren't in school, it's keeping them central to what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so when the schools reopened in June, to specific year groups, then we had to create opening plans and risk assessments to
Yeah.
make sure that the school was safety and that we had all the measures in place. The Department for Education did drop in phone calls where public health would ring you. I received one of those calls. Public health rang you and asked you questions about what you were doing to ensure that everybody was being kept as safe as they possibly could.
So, did you have the directive that you need to do X, Y, and Z, or did you have to implement these things yourself? So, you had to think about all of the strategies and what you had to implement. So, it's not that you were left on your own, but because there was so much to do, you had to just then take it on board yourself without any instruction. You just had to do this.
Well, we've had guidance from the DfE.
Yeah,
They've
yes,
sent us a lot of guidance, and because I'm within a group of schools, we were able to kind of work between us. We were able to collaborate and make sure that we had the same understanding
mm-hmm.
of what was being said. And there are people that you can call if you need to, clearly, where
Right.
you can get greater clarification if you need it.
Got you. Okay. Wow. So that was all up until the summer holidays. And then, I mean, it didn't stop there. The summer holidays was not a break. It was not a
No,
break. It was not going on holiday. It was almost like a shush. I've really got to concentrate because September is just a few weeks away.
yeah,
And again, it all completely changed.
yeah.
And were you what did you have to do for all of that? Was it an instruction that you had to follow guidelines, or did you have to think on your feet and just implement these things yourself? Bearing in mind, of course, that each primary school or each school is going to be different from one to the other because you've got different sets of pupils, different types of families, different areas of, of the country to have to accommodate.
Yes, but ultimately everybody's providing the same or a similar education because we have the national curriculum and we have
Yeah.
all of the like that we have to follow. I think that during the summer holidays, life didn't stop in school.
No.
Schools closed and had another deep clean.
Yes.
So there were people in schools throughout the holidays doing everything that needs to be done in relation to that. Social services continued. Safeguarding doesn't stop over the summer holidays, and
Nope.
you would have seen nationally that there was an increase with things like that. So that continued, and then of
Yeah.
course we were September for the children returning to school in September, with the having to consider that they've missed preschool
Yes.
or they've a significant amount of the previous year.
Yes.
So
And so
we returned then thinking about what are the priorities and
yes.
what do we want our children. And I think ultimately what everybody in the profession has done is kept the children central to all of the decisions that have been made.
Okay, so I'm thinking here that what you're thinking is the children in September are going to come back at all sorts of different levels. So it's making sure you're prioritizing their basic educational needs across the board and then filtering in all of the other things that they can cope with and deal with to make sure that you're trying to get them to do the all-round curriculum, but knowing that there's going to be a bit of fluctuation and a bedding in phase, I suppose, in September. Yeah.
So there's somebody called Maslow who talks about a hierarchy of needs.
Yes.
And I'm sure you know all about him. And then there's something else called Bloom's, which is a learning taxonomy.
Mm-hmm.
And the schools that I'm within, or the trust that I'm within, is very much that you need to get the Maslow right before you can do the Bloom's.
Yes. Okay.
So
Got you.
So as the children came into school, we were able to provide them with any anxieties. We were able to support them with any anxieties that they had. We did a lot of work over the summer through the website and social media where we do virtual tours of the school, so the children knew
Okay,
where they were
yeah.
going, they remember what they
Mm-hmm.
were doing. We do a meet the teacher. We'd talk about the curriculum. We'd have staff reading stories online and things like that, just so that they weren't coming into the unknown,
Yeah, that's,
particularly
yeah, really
those little
important.
ones. Yeah,
I mean,
and
well,
then
yeah, because they missed out on the sort of the induction phase. And, I
yeah,
mean, it's bad enough going to somewhere that's massive, from maybe a small nursery, and then all of these other people around, and you've got to wear masks, you've got to go sort of one-way systems around the school. It's not as though their introduction to school is like the norm, and we can, I think, talk about the norm as in back then it wasn't the norm, so anxieties must have been a little bit high for these little people.
yeah. And I think that for primary schools, we weren't required to wear masks. So
Okay,
the science shows that the rate of transition was significantly less in
yeah,
younger children. So we weren't required to wear masks, so that the children didn't have to kind of guess what was going on.
yes,
For
okay, yes,
still had all of the facial expressions, and that was important, very
yes.
important. Um, and while trying to maintain social distancing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and children love to hug, and I mean, each other. The teachers, they have this adoration about people that are giving them all this information. They're like little sponges, aren't they? So to actually, have to hang back a little bit is a little bit alien to a child because they get nurturing and love from teachers as well as they do, their home environment. It's an extension of that nurturing environment, isn't it, at school?
It is, but they do understand. They do recognise that the world's a bit different at the moment, and they do have
Okay,
an understanding. It isn't an issue that we've had yet.
great.
We've been.
Okay.
They get it. They get it.
Yeah, I suppose, when they listen to what's going on and they can see what's going on, they pick up on actually sort of situations, they pick up on tensions, they pick up if things aren't quite right, actually. So their intuition at that age probably helped, which is
Well,
fabulous.
they're
Tell me,
sponges. They're absorbing it all of the
yes,
time. Yeah.
yes, yeah, like little sponges, little squidgy sponges. So now you mentioned to me the other day that in October there came in, because of lockdown one being well, a bit of a journey, to be quite honest, probably a bit of an up and down situation with what was going on. There was a law that was brought in October about having to accommodate another lockdown if it was to happen, which
Yeah.
of
So
course must
in
have
October,
brought loads of complications.
well, in October, the legislation came in to say that if a child was off school due to COVID for COVID related symptoms, either through isolation or because they were shielding, we had a legal obligation to provide remote learning for those children.
Got you. Okay. But what problems did that bring in? Because the infrastructure wasn't there, was it? I mean, how did you do all of this? There's technology that, I mean, for one,
Well,
wasn't quite up there.
yeah, the first thing we had to do was make sure that everybody was able to do it. We had already started thinking about what if this happens again. So we
Yeah.
were able to look at different platforms that we would be able to teach children from. But honestly, again, it was just another brilliant example of where the staff pulled together
Hmm.
and did what they needed to do. Although we needed to provide a remote education, and the requirement was at primary school age to provide between 3 and 4 hours of learning a day.
Yeah.
Um, how we chose to do that, there was more of a leeway of how we chose to do that. So for my teachers, they would complete pre-recorded sessions
Yeah.
so that the children were, and we did that for a variety of reasons, which I'll talk about in a moment, but we completed pre-recorded sessions which the children were able to access. And
Hmm.
then later on in the day, we would provide a drop-in session where
Yeah.
the children come together and get feedback from their work. And the reason for the pre-recorded sessions and not the live, although some teachers have done live sessions,
Yeah.
more of a secondary thing, but for the pre-recorded sessions, it meant that parents would be able to access those lessons at times that were convenient to them.
Yes, of
So,
course. Yes, really important with the youngies.
got
Yeah.
absolutely, if you've got two children and one laptop and you're trying to educate both of them at home, actually that's quite tricky. But with a pre-recorded session, you could do those sessions in the evenings, or if you were a key worker and still working but didn't want your children in school, you could do that in the evening. And that
That's really good forward thinking, because I suppose a lot of people are like, well, they're going to miss their lessons. It's like, no, no, don't worry about it. We've accommodated this. When your child decides they want to learn, because we know what you're up against at home, you're their parent, not their teacher, give them this. So you read the signs and then give them this at a time that was appropriate for them to like be engaged. Really
and
good.
then what we were able to do is we were able to phone the children, or speak to them through the online learning platform, but we were able to phone the children and the parents and give them
Yeah.
one-to-one feedback on their learning then, or provide any further support that they needed. So what
Yeah.
came out of that, the children were really missing their friends, and they were really
Oh,
missing the
yes.
social interactions of that. So
Yes.
from that, the teachers where I am came together and created like class assemblies, but it would be an
Okay.
opportunity for, during that class assembly, for them to talk to their friends.
Yes,
And
that's a really good idea, because I would imagine a lot of
yeah,
friendships are formed and relationships and how people interact with each other at that age. It's really
yeah,
important for their
absolutely.
learning.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's although it's been an absolutely totally different world, it's been inspiring of what people have
Yes,
achieved.
I think it has. I mean, the the vertical learning curve of all of this was just something that I won't say forced upon you, because it wasn't a force, but it was an absolute, you had to turn on a sixpence from everything that was known to everything that you've done now. And it has been something that's been learnt along the way. And I suppose with kids that are broken up from December last year. I mean, it's been longer than a summer holidays, hasn't it? You know, so they've been off properly off
Yeah.
school for a good two and a bit months. And of course, going back to school on Monday. Are you kind of going back to the September systems of how things will be, or are there further measures you've put in place or procedures?
The As far as the keeping the children safe and following the protocols as far as COVID is concerned, we are going back to the September way.
Yep.
And for the children returning on Monday, there will be we've sent out questionnaires asking the children what it is they want when they come back.
Okay.
And our children want normality.
Okay.
And
Yes.
they want the reassurance that the world is going to back to normal again.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think for us, this has been a year of our life. But if you're 5, that's 20% of your life.
Yes, yeah, looking at it that way, it's true, isn't it? And actually, how they were before that, they might have
Absolutely.
lost that a little bit, and they've lost that comfort of what it used to
Yeah.
be like. You mentioned to me the other day boundaries and things like that. Little people learn a lot from boundaries and cope very well with boundaries. So, is that what you're kind of putting into the school day as well?
Um, I think with boundaries, it's creating a feeling of safety, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what we will be spending time doing is re-establishing what effective learning looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So, at the like you've just said, children have spent weeks learning at home, and that environment is totally alien to what it's like in school.
Yeah.
So spending time looking at listener, what makes what effective learning looks like, and working on that kind of the stuff that you do in the first week in September when you've got a brand new class. It's setting
Yeah.
all that again.
Yes.
Moving from that point forwards, because this is where we are, so
Yes.
we can
And
need to
I
be moving forward.
I can imagine the rest of the term before the April Easter holidays is just going to be establishing whereabouts the children are as well, because I can imagine over the last weeks, months, they've been inundated with work to do to give them a choice of what it is they, a bit of a variety, because, you don't have to do it all, but do some of it. And then you need to pull in who's been doing what and sort of where you should be starting off for all of them to go off from the same level. It's going to be, well, hopefully not tricky. It's going to hopefully be where it all starts to calm down a little bit and you can start reassessing, just moving forward. And that's, you need you need a break as well. Gracious me. I can't,
Well,
I can't imagine.
I think with the children, we are where we are, and the parents have done an absolute phenomenal job. They've
Yes.
been brilliant and supportive, and you could have asked no more from the parents. But the parents have also been balancing their own lives
Yes.
and trying to work from home themselves and doing everything else that they need to do as a parent.
Yeah.
So it will take time, but children bounce back quickly,
Yes.
and I think that over the next few days or so, parents may see some anxieties in their children, or may see some different behaviours. But I think what I would say to that is that actually, no matter what the behaviour is coming out of a child,
Yeah.
or how you perceive that behaviour to be, they are trying to give you a message in their own little way. So, if behaviours do change, it's just talking to them about what's happening and sharing that with their teachers. Because
Yes,
if we
that's
don't know,
true.
we can't do anything about it. So
Yes.
I think it's being open and transparent and recognising that everybody is in this together. That
Yes, and that's the
actually,
phrase that's really it. That's the thing. We're all in the same situation. Shona, I'm
yeah,
conscious that you've got to get off and you've got a meeting to
so am
go
I.
to. Don't want you to start getting a bit twitchy. So thank you so much for your time. It's been really
Thank you.
great to know what you've been doing and how you've adapted, not just personally, but your school has adapted, and how, it doesn't end here, but I do hope it gets to some sort of a semblance where you can sit back and just enjoy teaching the children again, because that's what you signed up for, not all of the hoo-ha that's been going on. But thanks so much. Thank you for joining us. All right,
Thank
speak to you
you.
later. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Wow. Okay. So, gracious me. Now, what a year. I think the teachers, head teachers, the governors, all of the filter down that we've had with the instruction from the DfE and all of what has gone on has been pretty much the same across the board, but of course each school has had to deal with it differently depending on the children that they've got in their school. And what's great to know is that the welfare of the children and the families have been at the forefront of what the schools have been doing. So education, we've got to keep these children educated, but firstly you've got to make sure that they're okay and the scene is set for them to learn. Otherwise that's where anxieties are going to come in, and that there is just a block to learning. So it's great to know that the welfare has been looked after almost firstly and more importantly. And of course, with all of the work, let's just say with Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2, hopefully parents aren't thinking, oh my God, I haven't got all of this done. They're going to go back to school on Monday and they haven't done it all. I don't think that's what's important, because I think there has been so much work given out to these children and the families that it's been because you can pick and choose a little bit more about what it is they need, what it is you want them to do based on the signals of what they're telling you they want to learn, and when of course they're going to, when they want to sit down and learn it. And don't forget that, in a classroom situation you've got 25-30 children, you've got a teacher and you've got a teaching assistant. Well, they're not going to be getting as much one-to-one in the classroom as they are with you anyway. anyway. So that's that's a better sort of relationship, sort of, if you're teaching them at the same time. And these children learn a lot through activity-based learning. And how are you supposed to do all of that? You know, you're not their teacher, you're their parent. So I think hopefully parents will not be thinking that their children have fallen behind so much in that respect, because that can be picked up. You know, you've got a lot more reading that's happened. I was talking to Shona the other day, a lot more reading has gone on. So if they've been doing reading, then they've been looking at words, the spelling's going in, the grammar, the vocabulary is possibly going to be more than it was anyway. So where they might have dipped down in some things, they've probably started to excel in others. And with maths, you know, problem solving, the formula is there for them at that age. So it's a case of, she's realised that children haven't fallen behind in the fundamentals of the English and the maths. They might have done when it comes to learning about the Egyptians or the Incas, something like that. But if they're focusing on what matters to keep them going, then she's found that that's worked. So they might have fallen behind if you look at the curriculum, but as far as their education fundamentals go, they're all pretty much at that same level, and hopefully we'll just start going back to it when they go back to school, which I'm sure the children are just as excited about as the parents. I'm hoping anxieties aren't running high or anything like that, but we will see. It's going to be interesting. Some parents are going to be delighted and have little cheers. I actually found it I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed having the children at home, but then I'm a stay-at-home mum anyway. And my day will be very different when they go back to school next week. It will be wonderful, but it will be very different. But they're looking forward to it. That's what's important. They're looking forward to it. So even though I'm a bit like glum about it, they are thinking this is just going to be great. And I think if over the weekend, if all we do is just be encouraging and be very positive about it, they will feed from us on that. They will soak up the enthusiasm, and that we're absolutely fine about it. They should be fine about it. So hopefully the anxieties will be a little bit less than we think. And of course, you need to make sure the uniform fits and that they've got their school bags done and the compass isn't in the corner of the room in the attic that they decided they wanted to learn in. All of those sorts of things. But thank you for joining today. It's been a shorter show than normal, but sometimes, that might not be a bad thing. And thank you. So have a great weekend. Back to it on Monday, and have a glass of wine tonight. I'm going to do this. Listen to this. Look. Yeah. 1, that's because it's a Friday, and 2, because the kids go back to school next week. Overwhelmingly though, I think the congratulations for the head teachers, the teaching assistants, and everybody in the school is absolutely amazing, for parents as well and for kids. Hopefully now we can start to get back to what we know as what used to be normal. It's been an education. Have a great weekend, and we will see you on Monday. Thank you.